picking up good vibrations.
Welcome to the Filmcast review of Death of a Unicorn. I'm going to read the plot summary from the internet. When a man and his daughter accidentally hit and kill a unicorn with their car, his boss tries to exploit the creature's miraculous curative properties with horrific results. End quote. Devindra Hardwar, your thoughts on Death of a Unicorn?
This movie's kind of baffling. Like I think it's totally fine.
I feel like I hallucinated this movie.
Yeah, it is. There's good stuff in here, but I also feel like I did not need to be sitting in the theater for almost 2 hours to experience what this movie was going through. Because I like Paul Rudd, I like Jenna Ortega. I think there's some really funny bits. Always great to have Anthony Carrigan in something, and the actual concept is fun, but also it does feel like a movie I kind of hallucinated. Like I don't know why this movie exists. I don't know what you're trying to do. You're not like funny enough. You're not funny enough to be an A24 movie. This reminds me of like when, in the 90s, like people just like have like random like low budget B movies about all sorts of dumb stuff. And like, oh, we'll watch the one about the killer unicorn. Sure, whatever. This feels like a thing on that level and not something from a prestige that should be from a prestige movie studio. I don't know. I think it's perfectly fine, but I don't know why I saw this in theaters. I think that's my main takeaway.
Jeff Kanata, your thoughts on Death of a Unicorn?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on Death of a Unicorn are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Let's hear it, Jeff.
Though comedic, it deftly exposed moral failure in most CEOs. I liked it but hated, not once, though I waited, did the unicorn poop rainbows.
Okay. Kind of an inscrutable one, that one, Jeff.
I definitely think I liked it more than it sounds like Devindra did. I had fun with this movie. I laughed a lot. I thought the performances were great. It's so well cast. I am becoming a real fan of Will Poulter.
Yes.
That dude is awesome. And he
knows what he's doing. Yeah.
He plays this jerk, silver spoon kid so pitch perfect. Like, I feel like there's 2 or 3 young actors right now that are kind of being asked to do that a lot. And I'll take Will Poulter over most of them. He's so sort of effortlessly smarmy, but like also likable in a weird way. And he's not, it walks this line of being that jerk kid, but also kind of oblivious to, like, he's not all the way over the line into just being a caricature. I mean, he is a caricature, but he's not over the line into being a, just a mustache twirling evil. He's like, hey, I'm just a good guy, but he's just like a jerk to the bone. Anyway, enough about Will Poulter. He's great in this. I think even beyond him, the person I love most in this movie is Richard E. Grant, who's just doing it, just chewing scenery, baby. I loved him in this. Does it dance around some interesting tone, some subgenres? Like it gets way more horror movie than I thought it needed to. I don't think the visual effects are particularly well executed here, and that really holds it back, which is a bummer. Like, I think this could have been shot in a way to minimize that problem, and it was not. It's like, hey, look at the visual effects, and maybe we didn't have the money or time to make them really, really excellent. And that's a bummer. But there's enough fun stuff that I enjoyed it. I think the central premise is really just great. And Paul Rudd pulls it off, this kind of guy being torn in 2 directions, and his sort of inherent likability really carried the movie for me in a lot of ways. And I like that, the premise, the setup of the premise, which Dave read, so I guess is not a spoiler, is hitting the unicorn with your car. That could have been an entire movie of like, let's hide this fact. Let's play this game of constant, of nobody find the corpse, nobody find out our terrible secret. And the movie is like, no, I got more interesting things to do. I'm gonna get past that, and then there's another kind of setup of what the movie could be, and we sort of get past that too. I think the movie does more than it needed to in a certain way. I think it's more interested in getting at something. And I think it makes an interesting companion piece to another show that I almost brought up today but I'm not quite finished with it. So maybe next week I'll
Common
talk
side
about
effects.
It. Yes, common side effects,
Yeah.
which I think is doing this idea better,
Mhm.
but it's interesting that there's these two things that are happening at the same time.
Three things actually. So Lazarus, the new show from the Cowboy Bebop creator, is kind of a similar concept too, about a miracle drug that cures all pain.
And
similar,
the idea being that pharmaceutical companies would not want that. They would choose profits over human life. And obviously that is a relevant notion these days in the post Luigi era. But I think common side effects does it better, but I do like this movie. I do think it still has its crosshairs pointed in the right direction, even if it's a little unruly, a little rough around the edges. I think I liked it a lot more than Devindra.
I mean, it goes to pacing. I would say, like Shaun of the Dead, nice tight movie, really great concept, tight movie that really knows its boundaries and where to like not veer too far off. But yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I would agree. It does not reach the Shaun of the Dead level in my head, but yeah, high bar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put this in here right now. In the spoiler section of this review, there's going to be spoilers for Mickey 17. So I'm warning people ahead of time. So when you get the spoilers, going to spoil Mickey 17. This movie, I was not a big fan of. I think the main issue I had with it is it's supposed to be a satire of rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is we have just so many better examples of that already in our culture, in our society. For example, Succession. For example, The White Lotus. We talked about The Studio on the podcast this week. Arguably, even that's a better depiction of rich people than this one. And I also obviously already mentioned Mickey 17, which I think does a decent job of it as well. And I just think it's the sort of what we see here is not particularly interesting or great, just in terms of how it's satirizing the wealthy and elite class. Nice to see Richard E. Grant. He's always just compelling. He's such a great actor in anything he's doing. And so like he was by far the highlight of the movie for me. And I think Tia Leone is his wife. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fun
seeing her again.
Yeah, just great seeing her. Just in general, like she's a great actor, and I love I think she's a great presence, and she does a great job in this movie. But yeah, I think the satire components just weren't funny to me. I don't think I laughed. I maybe laughed like one time during the whole movie. And then the final act of the movie just becomes a completely different movie. It's just we're doing something way different than anything that's come before. Yeah. And I don't think either genre of what they were trying to achieve was executed particularly well. And I agree with Jeff's comments about the CG. I think it was very rough. And you're right, Jeff. They did. A lot of the CG did not look good, and it's like I don't know why they decided to use that much of it.
I agree. The movie could have gone the shark route from Jaws, where like less is more.
There was no sense of like what limits they had in terms of what they could achieve with the CG.
I think some shots they did have like a physical puppet, like when it's like you're close up on the mouth. Like that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. But then like there's some shots that I was like, I do not believe for a second that that's a quote unquote real unicorn.
Well, there's a lot of moments where we're just lingering on them in motion, and the motion doesn't even seem natural.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, and I'm kind of confused as to why they thought it looked good. But I like what the movie's trying to say. I like what it's like overall. I'm aligned with the message, but I do not think it lands. What it's trying to say, and that is the fundamental problem.
Yeah, like for me, like the word mid, I hate throwing that out there these days, but this feels like a mid movie, or at least like mid tier. Just like, oh, you're not funny enough, you're not prestige enough, you're not like pointedly smart enough in terms of what you're doing. I will say this though about speaking of Shaun of the Dead, Jessica Hines, who co-starred in Spaced and who was in Shaun of the Dead, is the head of security.
She's great,
and it is wild to see her as sort of like the tough, gun girl.
She was also in the franchise. She was great in that show as well.
Yes. I love her. I love to see more of her.
But Jeff, we're going to say,
I had way more fun with this than either of you guys did.
Yeah.
I see its flaws. I certainly wouldn't put it up there as one of my favorite movies of the year, or better than some of the movies that are trying to do similar things. I just had fun. I think I like most of the cast, and I liked watching them work, and they're all doing great work. There's a lot of really lovely sort of long scenes of 4 or 5 people all bouncing off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that literally, but their sensibilities are bouncing off of each other. You have like the entire rich family and the entire other Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, like everybody in one room at the same time, and the banter. I had a good time with it, and like some of the stuff. I don't know. I just had much more fun with this movie than it sounds like either of you guys did. Even if I totally recognize that it's not a home run.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, I think it's perfectly serviceable. Like, I think a lot of people like this movie. Part of what may be tainting it a bit for me is that I had just watched both episodes of The Studio.
Yeah.
And that is such a
it's better.
pitch perfect, well-written comedy. And it's just like, oh, I'm in for another comedy. Oh.
Yeah, just like
this is the other side
wise, and again, like we've seen these archetypes done better elsewhere.
Yes.
Like these archetypes of these like oblivious rich people done better elsewhere. And I think it just makes for a tough compare. That's all. So
what's funny is that Shaun of the Dead is only 10 minutes shorter than this movie, but this movie feels like it's half an hour longer than Shaun of the Dead, just in terms of how much it dragged for me at points.
Jeff, go ahead.
Not to tangent too much, but or even spoil anything. I don't think this does, but it is interesting to me that all these things are happening. This theme in the zeitgeist is popping up over and over again. And almost always we get the rich people getting their comeuppance. And I guess that's what fantasy is for, right? Is to live out the things that don't happen in real life. But it also strikes me to see it again and again, like, it's just not how it would play out. It's just not how my lived experience has been, like seeing the world and seeing the news. And, it's nice that movies give us this version of events where, the morally right thing is, happens, but it also maybe feels like a weird placebo, like a weird,
I mean, Batman is about a billionaire who decides to like fight crime, so anyway,
it wasn't originally about a billionaire.
But like speaking of the idea,
right?
Speaking of the idea, Jeff, Common Side Effects is doing that. Like, how would this actually affect the elites? Like, how would they respond to it? Like what you're saying, like that is such a smart take on how the world works. Whereas I don't think this is just like rich people bad. Of course they'll be crazy with it. You give them something that'll cure anything. Yeah.
All right, folks, let's get to spoilers for Death of a Unicorn starting now. I wrote this on my Letterboxd page at letterboxd.com/DaveChen, that in my whole life, I never watched a single movie starring Steve Park that's a satire of oblivious rich people with a climax that involves offering a wounded baby creature up to its protectors. In my whole life. And then in 1 month, I watched 2 of them. Right? Like, isn't that kind of weird that like
that is
the
weird.
whole life never watched a single movie like that, and then in 1 month 2 of those movies. Steve Park plays one of the people, the scientists, for those who don't know. He also played Mike Yanagita in the Coen Brothers movie Fargo. That's what my original opening statement was about. But yeah, I was watching this, I was like, I feel like I've just seen this done better in a different movie directed by an Academy Award winning director. And that movie was Mickey 17.
Yeah.
And they both have the same theme of, man, aren't rich, powerful people oblivious?
Aren't they going to reap this crazy natural phenomenon that we've only encountered once?
I have to say that there's an image in Mickey 17, again, we're in spoiler mode for that movie as well, that's like seared into my mind. And it's Toni Collette, who, by the way, like, again, like the Toni Collette, Tia Leone, they're like the same. Anyway, whatever. Toni Collette takes the baby creature.
Tia Collette and Tony Leone?
Yeah. Toni Collette, at the end of Mickey 17, she takes the baby creature and she like takes its tail and like cuts it off and then puts it in the thing. And she's like, I need this for my sauce. And I literally cannot stop thinking about that scene. It's like, it's just because it's so upsetting, because when she like cuts the creature's tail off. Like the creature like cries in pain.
Yeah.
And it's clearly like, and she's like, whatever. She doesn't give a fuck. She's just using it for her sauces.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like literally the world's about to end. And all she cares about is her sauces. Like,
but enough about Mickey 17. Dave's
like,
still trying to rationalize or work through his thoughts on a movie from 3 weeks ago.
I mean, that's a movie that kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, it
has ideas with you. And it's like I kind of wanted more of that.
It was just such an upsetting visual to take that thing's tail and turn it into sauce. Anyway, but anyway, similar concept here, right? They're taking this unicorn horn,
opposite
and
of a
filing
tail.
it, turning it into this movie's version
snorting
of sauce. Snorting it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final part of the movie turns into like a horror movie, and I'm just like, what are we even doing here? Like, what was the play? Like,
I think that was the play. This was a horror comedy pitch, basically.
Yeah. But like,
well, I think it's fucking Jurassic Park. Don't fuck with nature. Like don't try to impose your will on this creature that is more powerful than you.
I just think that the sort of pointed economic satire and horror thriller make for like unwieldy bedfellows. I guess is how I would say, right?
I mean, I think Devindra's already pointed out it can work.
Okay. Like
Shaun of the Dead, for example.
Okay, yes.
I think there's lots of other horror comedies.
Shaun of the Dead is like a singular movie, though. Like it's like people regard it as like one of the greatest.
It is of a type. I mean, so many of the Evil Dead movies, horror comedies. I think at points they live.
Those weren't
feels
satire,
like a horror comedy.
so like that was
true.
not a satire.
It's true. Those weren't. They live.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, in my opinion, some of the greatest movies ever made. So, like,
sure, and I'm saying this movie is just not. It's it's a perfectly fine, perfectly serviceable kind of horror comedy. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's terrible.
Yeah, but I did not. I think the satire parts needed to be more sharply written, and or more of the movie needed to be in the thriller vein for this movie to make more of an impact, because it tries to do both. I don't think it does either particularly well. In my opinion, a solution is choose a lane and do that one better. Like have the whole thing be a thriller, or have the whole thing be just satire, people talking in rooms. And I felt it like brushed up against being something very interesting multiple times, but never really got there, unfortunately. And then the ending, I guess, is just like, hey, all is forgiven. The unicorns are on Paul Rudd's side now, right? Like, I guess is kind of
that, dude. I hated that. I hated. I mean, the moment where Paul Rudd is like, you know what I'll do? I'll stab this guy in the. It's like, whoa, what, Dad?
Right, that was so out of nowhere, right?
Like this mild-mannered dude is just gonna all of a sudden be an actual cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he's done some bad things, right? This kid, but now you're an actual murderer,
Yeah, like, do you believe that Paul Rudd would make that decision to do that
way.
At that moment?
It's just, it's a wild thing. I mean, it was kind of funny that they both stab each other, right? But then the like little Deus Ex Machina of the unicorns being like, we'll save you with our horns of lightning, which was one of the worst effects I had seen in the movie up to that point, which is saying something, right? Where it's like this little cloud appears between their two crossed horns. I was like, eesh. Yeah, I thought the ending was not great. And then the whole car ride where it's like, we know that these horsies are going to try to free us because they get it.
They did the Fast and Furious 4, right? It's the same thing. It's the same ending, right? Fast and Furious 4.
It's so weird. It's like, well, why were they trying to kill you earlier?
Right.
Like, you gave the horn back, the kid back,
the thing that you took from them. The thing that you took from them, you gave it back to them. So now they like you.
Now they're going to save you. Like, this makes no sense.
Yeah. The thing is, I really enjoyed the first like 20, 30 minutes of the movie. I was like, oh, this is. Hey, they're setting this up like in a good, like, I understand the relationship is fraught and they're going to this challenging social situation. Oh, and they hit the unicorn, but the unicorn contains all the secrets of the universe in it. That's
kind of cool.
We just kind of casually killed that thing. And then it's like, and then we get to the house and it's like, okay, this is kind of a shittier version of, Mickey 17 or White Lotus. and then a shittier version of Jurassic Park at the end.
I love the very first scene of this movie is I thought this movie would be maybe more of that, right? Where Jenna Ortega just kind of leans her head and she's napping and resting, and he wants to get those files. That's it. That's the movie. That's the tension, right? Like not having this connection. And then it's the push and pull between family and work and whatever. Kind of cool. The movie just never really kind of hits that stride again.
You know, and when they start like speculating, oh, what can we do with the unicorn material? Like that was kind of like, oh, maybe this is the movie, and that's kind of cool. Like I could see this being an interesting thing of they're trying, but then the last like 40 minutes is just them trying to not die from the unicorn.
Like I said, kind of earlier, that I felt like I had 3 times where I was like, oh, this is the movie.
This is
the game is keep the knowledge of the unicorn away from the rich people.
Right.
Oh, no. Okay. So the game is, what the girl pushing and pulling against the dad, even when the game is now they all know how to do what the unicorn is. And it kept changing. And I actually thought that was cool. I actually thought the movie keeping me off balance of like, oh no, we're into E.T. and everybody's in white suits and we've cordoned off the house, and it's like I thought that was kind of neat.
I don't mind tonal shifts. Like I in fact love them. I love when a movie takes those swings. I just think it took a lot of swings, and by the end it wasn't really hitting much. Like I will say this though, Sunita Mani, always great to see her. I think she is funny in this role. This movie is also kind of what a wonderful ad for Volvo cars. That's what I was thinking, because actually the car they rent is a Volvo XC90. I was like, I can take a beating. Keep clicking. Hit a unicorn, still going. They're safe. They're fine. Volvo cars can kill a unicorn.
I appreciated some of the grisly deaths. I thought you guys would be more down for some of the fun. Like,
it's fine.
Sunita Mani gets fucking fucked up, and so does Richard E. Grant, and then Tia Leone with the just disemboweled as her son has to.
That was disemboweled, intestines everywhere. They're good kills. But even then, I think back to, man, Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead was so good about how there was one scene in Shaun of the Dead where you see intestines, and it's like when the really shitty friend gets taken out the window in the bar, and they start clawing at his stomach, and you see it for a glimpse, and they cut away. It just perfectly knew what to show you to really make you gross out. Whereas this movie is just everything. Let's just see all the guts. Let's see all.
There's the shot when Steve Park takes it to the chest where we're looking through the hole, and Paul Rudd's head leans in through the hole. There's some fun stuff in this movie.
I agree. I agree. The kills were pretty good. But I literally didn't expect there to be any kills in the movie. I'm watching 45 minutes in. I'm not. If you told me where is this movie going, I'm like, oh, the rest of the movie is them fighting with each other about what to do with the unicorn.
Yeah.
That's literally what I thought the movie was going to be. I would not have predicted that the unicorn's parents or friends are going to come in and just start mauling people, and then at the end they're going to like Paul Rudd again.
Listen, if I were 12 years old seeing this movie late night on HBO, when I shouldn't be watching it, that is the perfect experience to see this movie. Otherwise, I don't know, as a big theatrical release from A24, it's kind of weird. That's all. Feels too campy for them at times.
All right. I think those are our thoughts on Death of a Unicorn. At the end of the day, despite a lot of what we said today, it is impressive that Alex Scharfman made a movie. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.